Yeah, I guess we can get started. People will start flowing in. So, okay, thank you everyone. Thanks for joining. As the saying goes, we always keep our best for the last. So today we are really happy to have Professor Subodha Kumar from Temple University. Subodha is somebody who has done work at the intersection of information systems and supply chain and operations. And he has worked extensively with faculty across the aisle, published extensively, worked with practitioners, and as you can see, has worked in a variety of relevant areas. Today, what he's going to talk about is how AI is transforming supply chains and what it holds for the future. So, Subodh, it's yours.
Okay. Thank you, Srikar, and thank you all for joining. So I will actually go with the flow. So I'll please keep asking question and interrupt me. We don't have to wait till the end. And the idea will be that also hear from your perspective or what you think where world is moving. Most of the thing that I'll be talking today will be based on what we are hearing from the practice and also from the research perspective, what we are seeing. So it's a mix of that. So you will keep seeing that I keep referring to some of the work as well as what we are seeing in some of this media article. So if you think of, so this was one of the survey done. We're asking that what was the adoption in 2022? Just in 3 years, when people were talking about that AI is critical, very small percentage of uh, a supply chain practitioners were thinking that it is critical to their business. It has dramatically changed. And now we already see that many supply chain executives feel that AI is already critical to them. So what has changed and what kind of new opportunities and challenges it has brought to us? So let's talk about that and also how the cutting edge research can help in making it better, the whole adoption. So when we think about the AI driving the smart supply chain management, we have seen starting from raw data to a lot of fully automated smart manufacturing system. And in between, uh, other part of analytics also comes and plays the picture like visualization and transformative analytics. And so at Fox, we have a center called Center for at Temple University at Fox School of Business called Center for Business Analytics and Disruptive Technologies, where we work with many companies. And one of the things that we are working in is with area on different supply chain companies. But even healthcare companies, we are looking at the supply chain aspect there as well. So this was one of the recent article I was looking at, and they're talking about what are the supply chain trends in 2025. And the four things that caught my eyes and which I think is something that we all should understand well and try to get the best out of it. One is that we have more connected data and how supply chain is changing because of that. What are the new business models coming? Second piece, of course, is the resilience piece. Uh, and question that we are asking that how we can have resilience without jeopardizing our efficiency, which I think is a very important question. And collaboration is becoming more and more critical. And when we talk about collaboration, we have some classic things that the different shareholders, different stakeholders in supply chains need to talk to each other. But it is going beyond that. Even customers are becoming end customers are becoming a very important part of supply chain. And then we will end the discussion with some supply chain innovations that we are seeing right now. So that's the plan today. As I told, let's keep it very interactive. So I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have and also add your perspective on that. Okay. So when we think about how this whole concept of IoT started, it goes back to the supply chain. So in mid 90s, when Kevin Aston, who was a brand manager at Procter and Gamble, which he started saying Internet of Everything. And he had problems with this one type of lipstick cosmetic product. So he essentially wanted some ways to make this available to everybody. And that's when, or the data become available to everybody in the organization. And that's when he pushed for radio frequency ID tags. And as most of us in supply chain would know, that radio frequency ID make it a lot more efficient. And that was the start, how Walmart picked on it to it, mandated many of their suppliers to start using RFID tags. We started getting a lot of data, and now how it is used in preventive maintenance, that is changing the world. So where the future lies, we are seeing more and more connectivity, but what does it mean for supply chain? How can supply chain really benefit from all this idea? So let's talk about some of the things that is happening right now that I feel is the future that we all have to look collectively and think about how we can address some of those issues. We see that smart houses where they're talking to each other, or even smart traffics, smart city, connected cars, and so on. And all these numbers, this is a huge impact, of course, in the supply chain, because everything eventually adds up in the supply chain concept. But if you look at the numbers, first of all, we have gone, the growth is exponential. We have gone beyond $50 billion spent in IoT in 2020, and we have seen some phenomenal growth even after that. But where is the money going? From very start of IoT, which we start seeing around 10 years back when we saw the real action happening, manufacturing, transportation, and utilities. So clearly the supply chain has been at the core, both from the users of IoT as well as adopters or innovators in IoT. So I'll start with some of the very interesting new phenomena that we are seeing and that we have tried to study, and many others are also looking at that. So one of the research we did recently was based on some of the companies worldwide. It was not just the US companies. In fact, we talked to many companies in Asia as well as in Europe. And we were trying to see that how they are utilizing a concept of industrial IoT. So let me first define that and how it is changing the face of supply chain and in the maintenance service market. So those who are familiar with industrial IoT, you know how it works. But what is happening right now, and this is a published work, so anybody interested, you can always go and read about it. Uh, and all the work I'm referring mostly is with doctoral students have been involved. So this was with one of the doctoral student. So what we are seeing in industrial Internet of Things, these platforms are mainly used for proactive maintenance. So here, the companies, the manufacturers or OEMs, they are putting this IoT chips into devices. They are collecting data in the real time, and they are using that data to improve their maintenance efficiency or reduce the risk of downtime. That's the basic idea. Like Boeing 787 have more than 1 million RFID tags in each of their planes, and many devices. Any device we think about, plane is of course the extreme example where we require a lot of proactive maintenance. But even things like cars or any machines that we are using, they are relying a lot on this IoT data. So when you think about it, how are they helping and which companies are really using? So, Airbus have started using, General Electric has started using, Sony has started using. So clearly this is very powerful. But one thing that was intriguing, that companies are looking at it different. And when you think of logistic companies in supply chain, be it FedEx and others, they are also playing a very important role on how they are using these sensors. But when you think about companies like Airbus, where they are putting these IoT devices and sensors, Airbus have started their Skywise digital solution method, which basically the whole dedicated on collecting more data, doing proactive maintenance. GE is also introducing their new service management software, similar idea as what Airbus has done. And Seni has done very similar thing for preventive maintenance and repair costs. So we, in last 4 to 5 years, we see a lot of buzz around that, right? But one thing that intrigued us, like Komatsu, Tesla, Rolls-Royce, they have started using this data and they provide the after sales service to their customers, right? And the after sales service are many different kind of service in terms of the proactive maintenance. But there are also the third parties who also provide after sales service. They are not the manufacturers, they are just third party. They are in the business of providing maintenance and repair services, right? Now, the industrial IoT has changed the face of the game here. Now, how have they changed the face of the game? Because now the manufacturers have an extra advantage because they have access to the data from their industrial IoT system, which the third party who's right here do not have, right? Now, so that makes the whole supply chain of maintenance very interesting because these guys are kind of isolated now who do not have this kind of data. Now, if you think of this supply chain, you will think, well, in that case, eventually these guys would be phased out of the market and manufacturers will have more and more power. But we saw something very interesting happening here. And this is where I will open the platform also for questions and comments. So manufacturers are creating this platform with the hope that they can improve the after sales service. And there is a data on that showing that it is working well. But some of these companies, they are also opening up their platform to third party. Now, what are those companies? Like Seni and Siemens, they have opened their IoT-based platform to these third party companies. So the question comes is why? Because this sounded like this is a clear game changer and the third party services will be out of businesses, manufacturers will win the game, right? So why do you think, and anybody in the room, I would like to hear if you have any perspective, that why companies like Seni or Siemens, they are opening up their IoT-based platform where they are collecting data from the devices they have put, sensors they have put on the equipment to their third-party services who are competing with them in the maintenance service market. And what does it mean for the future of supply chain when we are relying on more data is becoming our new oil and data is becoming more critical than ever? First question is that why would they even do it? And second, what does it mean for the face of the supply chain? Anybody want to comment on that? I'll be very happy. As I told, I would like to keep it very interactive. And also, please put your questions by unmuting yourself or put it in the chat so that we can get the most out of this session. So any comments or questions on that? I see some of you are typing, which is good. You can also, I believe, unmute yourself. I think that is allowed for you to do that. Feel free to jump on that. We will try to, even though it is online, we'll try to make it as in person as possible. Okay. So, and ask any questions also here. If any part of this is, or you want to add a follow-up. So I'll wait for some of you. I see some of you are typing in the chat. But let me pick anybody. Let me take a little pause here. Anybody would like to unmute and speak? Yes, Amit, you want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I think maybe the equipment itself, just like Boeing. So if you're talking about aircraft, the equipment itself is so critical. And if there are places where their after-sales service is not able to reach, and if the other third-party after-sales service are able to help them, so it may help their brand image.
Yeah. Okay. So it will add the value for their original equipment. That's where they make the most money, right? So not only it will be more valuable, but also more safe, possibly, right, Amit?
Yes, sir.
Good. And JC Smiley wrote in the chat that they may also want to test it out before looking for a way to sell the data, right? Absolutely right. I was talking to executives of one of very large automobile company recently, and they were telling that for some pieces, their the services they provide based on the data they are collecting from their cars may become may provide more revenue than the value of the car itself, or the profit they are making from the car itself. So the profit based on the data from the cars may start exceeding the profit from the car itself, right? Which is very interesting business model. We did not think of a car companies would get into that. And you're right, JC, this is the way to see what people are interested. And this will go beyond an MRO, right? It's not only repair company. Now cars are collecting data on your directions, your music, your phone calls, and this can be very powerful. In fact, I was in a meeting with several faculty from Wharton and Penn in general, and one of the things they were telling that how Waymo is becoming very good because people can do take their personal calls from there because nobody else is in the car, right? But the question is that the car is there with you, Waymo is there with you, Alphabet is there with you, and they are listening to you. Okay. Now, Alphabet claims that they do not take any data on your phone calls when you are in Waymo, but it is going somewhere. So these are very important questions to ask right now, and I think as we go forward, those will be very useful questions. But this is the way to start. What is the value of this data? How it can help? You're absolutely right. So creating that ecosystem, even creating the future value of their data, but also make their equipment more powerful and useful for the users. But a lot of these things are in very early stage, and I think be it the plane manufacturers, car manufacturers, they are collecting a lot of data based on their sensors put inside the devices or even machines. How to utilize them, how to monetize them, those are very, very interesting questions that is forthcoming. And that will change the face of not only analytics, but also different business models. So I think we all should keep an eye on that and see how we will make best. It's very good for both practitioners and researchers. I think that's a very useful point. So, and at the same time, we see some of the companies have not opened up. So that's why I say that this is very important. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Keep adding here. I would love to take more questions or comments. So the second piece here is on collaboration, right? Now, collaboration has been the point of discussion since we saw the bullwhip effect was defined by Howley in late 90s, right? So we all have seen this graph in some form that, if data is not shared from the retailer to wholesaler or from wholesaler to manufacturers or manufacturer to supplier, they all keep some buffer. And this effect is referred to as bullwhip effect because fluctuations increase, and that hurts the supply chain, and that hurts everybody. Everybody is worse off, right? So we should do more collaboration. But at the same time, we also know that it is strategically sometimes not possible to share data or information. So how can we find a middle way, and how can the world of data and analytics help us? So let me spend some time on that, and we are seeing a variety of things happening right now, which is again changing the face of the whole supply chain. So first thing that companies started doing that use all the vendor managed inventory. That's a little old thing now. But even though it's an old thing, many supply chains are still not doing it. They are not sharing the data in the way they would like. Walmart has done a very good job in sharing their data with Procter and Gamble or with Coke and Pepsi, but we see a lot of variability in the supply chains around that, right? So one of the studies that we did, that also published. So anybody interested, you can go read this. We published last year with one of our former PhD student who is in Fordham now. And in this study, we were trying to see what can we learn from all these e-commerce businesses in the physical world so that we can try to reduce the information asymmetry in supply chain, right? So one of the thing has been that, you don't want to do it strategically, but one big thing had been how to do it, how to share the data in the real time. So we went back, and in this paper, we go into some other aspects as well. But one of the big aspect was that what is happening with the newer supply chains. So we asked this question of how to do it, and we saw this concept of store within a store. So let me talk about it and how that is changing some of this collaboration aspect. And that is one piece of collaboration. I'll get deeper into that. That will be one part of my discussion today. So this article that Business Week, Bloomberg Business Week started talking, how come Best Buy survived where others did not? Now, of course, there are many reasons for that. But some of the reasons which is common across the companies which have survived is that 10 years back, they started creating this Samsung mini shops, okay, within Best Buy. Also, retailers are inviting other companies inside. So JCPenney has now rented a space to Sephora. So what they have done here is that Sephora has a space there rather than JCPenney sharing the data with Sephora. If they want to, they rented them a space. So how Walmart tried to solve the problem? Walmart told that, see, I will give you almost real-time data to my suppliers and manufacturers about any piece of Coke or Pepsi which has been bought from my store, or many Procter and Gamble items. So if you go buy a diaper, there's likely that Walmart will send the information about that diaper to Procter and Gamble in almost real time, right? So they know that from this store this item has been bought. Now they may not give you information about the customers, but they will give you the information on whether this item has been bought. So but why not everybody do that? Because they may not have IT system, and it's not an easy thing to do. There is also the trust about the data also comes in the picture. What if Walmart is tweaking the data before sending it to their suppliers, right? So what JCPenney told Sephora, that you come there, I rent you a space, and you see all the consumer behavior there, and you will see what they are purchasing, and you manage that, right? Now, there are many different form of this store-in-store model is happening right now. One is that you rent a space, and they also take care of the point of sales. So they even get the point of sales data. Second is that they don't manage the point of sales data. They only see which inventory is moving, right? But they don't know who is buying. Okay, so that is kept separate. And we are seeing worldwide all these models are coming. But that is in many ways is creating a collaborative model or reducing the classic bullwhip effect in supply chain. And the way data is being shared is very different from earlier. So I think this is a good point where we all have to start thinking that how come e-commerce became so big and how their supply chains are so efficient. Of course, it's a different model, but what we strategically failed over time is that taking the beauty of that and applying that in the physical store, because physical stores are not totally disappearing, and it may not totally disappear in our lifetime or some generations to go, right? The percentages will go down, but they're not disappearing. So we better understand how to manage the supply chain well. And any questions or comments on this part, by the way? Anybody want to add some examples that you saw or something that you have worked on that you find interesting there to add or challenge it? Also, please feel free to challenge any of these things. That is always good to hear different perspective, or this anything that we are talking always have a counter side to it. Any comments or questions? I see that JC, you're typing something. You can also unmute yourself and speak. I think JC, you're allowed to. I see that Amit was able to, so you can always speak as well. Please feel free to do that. Walmart within the store with selling stuff has been successful. Yes, actually, there have been a lot of studies being done both internally and externally. And what they have found is that generally, and they keep tweaking that model, but they have now allowed a lot of vendor managed inventory. They rent the shelf space. And one thing that Walmart has done differently from JCPenney and others is that they only rent the space, but the sales is managed still by Walmart. So Walmart is not giving any customers data. They are only giving the data on which item is moving. And then they say that you come and you fill the shelf as the manufacturer. And that model has worked very well, with some exceptions where they had to intervene, but mostly it has worked quite well. And that takes away a lot of information asymmetry. So again, you have to see where it will work, where it would not. Why it worked for Walmart, I can give you a very simple reason. Number one, they tried it with their large suppliers like Procter and Gamble, Coke, or Pepsi, and they themselves have a very good way to deal with the data. So they know how to use this data to manage their inventory well. And they also have a trust that they will be able to keep this data more secure, right? Because the Walmart sales data is also going to them. So they have done it in the way that is a low-hanging fruit. Now, if you expand it to the bigger picture, what happens, we don't know. And I will come into that what they are trying to do right now with their blockchain initiative. So I'll get into that how they are planning to make it more broad. But it has worked. It has mostly been successful for them. And that's why they are going on with their blockchain initiative. That's the simple reason. Okay. Thank you. Again, please feel free to keep adding or asking questions on that. Now, some of the companies, to add more collaboration or reduce the information asymmetry, have done this concept of postponement, right? So now postponement idea was that which was popularized by companies like HP or Asian Paints, that can I change my whole design of the product itself so that until some point, I'm just creating one design and then I create the differentiation close to the pull phase of the customer. So when customers are ready to pull the item. So rather than keeping 4 different variety from the upfront, then I keep it same. Now, what is the trade-off in the supply chain perspective? Here, I'm choosing the best design for each part. So think of HP printer. I have 4 different designs. There are four best design for this printer. Now here I have a common component for all 4 printer, and I just make some tweaks here. So you will say that, well, that's great. What is the problem and benefit here? The problem here is that now I might not be using the best design. I might not have enough differentiation, but the benefit is that because of this commonality and because of the information asymmetry, I'm creating a lot of reduction in the variability. Now, that reduction in supply chain cost is becoming so big that you're ready to compromise in others. But again, it does not always work. Now, one classic example in the recent time has been Tesla, who decided to not have like 3 different variants of every car. They just told that you will have a Y model, you have a S model, X model, and whatever variation you want within Y will be done through software that I can do over the air. I don't have to manufacture 20 different versions of that. I will manufacture one version and I create the variability. HP even went a step further and they told that for some of the printers, I will always produce with the most functionality and I will block some of the functionality if customers don't pay for it. Tesla model is very much similar on that. In fact, in service supply chain, some of the restaurants, they will create like similar curries for different dishes and try to mix. Now, there's a challenge there though, right? These are all examples of postponement. But then if you don't have enough differentiation, that also can create problem, right? So question is that, can I create enough differentiation with the endpoint and where to stop? Those are the questions and how analytics can help us in doing that. So, Asian Paints did it very nicely. They collected data on what kind of paints customers are interested in. And using that now, they have created they create based on pigments, they change the design, and you can, in the vending machine, you can basically create any color of the paints you want, right? One other side of the story was toilet papers, right? Now, supply chain is interesting. When COVID came, the first thing went out of US shelf was toilet papers. And toilet paper, where you would think, why toilet papers? They are not the cleaning supplies product, right? Why toilet paper? People are using more or less the same amount of toilet paper. One was the panic effect, but the second was that the supply chain effect. Where they really got hurt was their supply chain did not have any postponement. So they were able to produce certain kind of the big rolls of the toilet papers. So see, first of all, we have to understand what happened to the demand. So during COVID, people started using toilet papers in home versus in offices. So how does it make a difference in the supply chain? Well, the machines which were producing the toilet papers for offices, they could not produce the toilet paper for homes. Why? The roll sizes were different. The paper they were using were different. They could not fit in the fixtures at home and so on. Easy solution would have been if they had a postponement, they could do everything same and just create the household offices and so on, right? Why didn't they do that? Because the demand for toilet paper was very stable. So they did not never bother to change it. And by the way, they could not blame these shortages on Italy, China, or India, because almost everything that you produce in the toilet paper is made in the US itself. So there was no way we should have seen this kind of problem. So now companies like this, what they are doing now, they are going back to the table and say, even though my demand is very stable, can we do something in our supply chain using analytics to create this kind of collaboration and flexibility? That is changing the world. And one of the interviews that you can find on my page that I was talking to the local news here in Philadelphia in October, there was a strike which happened in ports, which kind of covered almost half of the ports of the U.S. And the first thing that went off the shelf was toilet paper again, right? So the question was that why did that happen? That was effect of what happened during the COVID. Toilet paper had nothing to do with that. And this is the time I was talking, the supply chains have to rethink that how they can redesign to deal with this kind of shocks. And that brings to my next point also on how to create resilience in the supply chain. But I will take a little pause here and I want to talk about another concept of co-creation before I get into that. But any questions or comments? And I'll keep moving until you ask questions or you add some things, and I'll be very happy to take different perspective. Amit, go ahead. You want to say something? Yeah.
You had mentioned something about the blockchain initiative of some company. Which company was that?
Walmart, and I'll come into that. Okay. So how they are changing. So I'll get into the blockchain part in a few minutes. Yes. I'm going to spend at least 10-15 minutes on that part as well, and some of the other innovations. Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay. Yeah, keep asking questions or comments. So another concept that is changing also, and this is only possible because of what is happening with the analytics right now, is the concept of co-creation. So in the concept of co-creation, customers are also becoming part of the supply chain now. So what is happening in customer co-creation? Like Fujitsu is collaborating with Canon, that's the one side. And then Nokia and many other companies, they're asking their customers that can we co-create the product together. Coca-Cola is also doing that. So why are companies going and reaching out to the customers itself to create a better product? Of course, to understand customers better. And we have a couple of papers on that. Again, you can go and find on my page and you can read more. I'll be happy to discuss later also if you have anything. So we had done a series of work with different companies. The latest one we came in 2023, where we say that how to manage the world of co-creation. But co-creation has led to some very interesting phenomena that can you create product differently for each customer, which is now referred to mass customization. Okay. I will also touch upon that, because that is also connected to the new thing that is coming, Industry 5.0, and how data is helping us in doing that. And I'll give you some specific example on that. Okay. Okay, good. So yeah, keep asking the questions, Jesse. I'm glad you're enjoying the conversation, but yeah, keep asking the question if anything comes. So next piece that I want to talk briefly about resilience part. Now, resilience in itself, we can spend hours talking, but couple of recent studies that we had done lately on how companies should do. So there was a lot of discussion after COVID that was a lot of resilience problem because we became too lean over time. And I think Mohan Sodhi had an article in Harvard Business Review talking about that is lean the problem of having a poor resilience, right? Uh, what has really happened with many supply chains is that not lean itself, but how lean is implemented, as well as how we look at the our tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers. Okay. So I'll give you one. This was a recent survey by Capgemini, and they were asking the supply chain executives about stability and resilience, right? And you can see here, many of them struggle after any kind of disruptions to recover from that. Now, you can say that, well, are we again going to have a disruption like COVID? In January, Bill Gates had a nice interview with the Wall Street Journal where he was talking about how we are expecting another disruptions, maybe up to the scale of COVID, and our supply chains are so poorly ready for that. And the reason why he was making that statement, you can watch that interview, that was very interesting, is that we are not pushing ourselves harder getting into our tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers. So this study we did with some European companies with my collaborators from Europe, and they took most of the work done. So thanks to them. But here we tried to see that what is the key thing that we need to look forward and how analytics can help. And one of the key messages that we find here is that, and this, by the way, there's a conversation piece of it. It is in French, but you can easily translate thanks to our AI. And you can read. That's a more practice version of it. Now, one of the key things that we find here, which is very critical, is that we have to look at our suppliers' disruption orientation, not just our disruption orientation. And we say that you can go deeper into this and you can go to your tier 3 supplier, tier 4 supplier. I think that is what is missing right now. If you think of what happened with or what is happening right now after DeepSeek was released, we saw that the NVIDIA stocks went down. Now, if you look at the NVIDIA supply chain, all of their chips are coming from only one chip company in Taiwan Semiconductor Company, right? Now, right after that, US government went to the same company and told you have to collaborate now with Intel. So, if you do not have your understanding of your tier 2, tier 3, this can be very, very tricky. And that is a very good example of how things can go wrong. And as I told, we can discuss more afterwards. But let me spend some little more time on supply chain innovations. Again, I will be very happy to take questions. And here I will focus more on blockchain, as you were asking Amit earlier, also on personalized mass customization and Industry 5.0. And I will also talk about some of the works we have been doing at our center recently that has led to some of this, fed to some discussion. But I will start from what is happening in the industry and how that brings very interesting questions and opportunities for all of us. Again, any questions, any comments? Doing okay? Okay, perfect. So this is another article in Forbes that I took from. They were talking about what are the different digital trends. So blockchain comes something which is becoming bigger and bigger. Of course, AI, ML platforms. Autonomous trucking, I will refrain from that, although that's something that I'm very fascinated that how that can change the face of the supply chain, and robotic process automation. So I'll touch on some of this, not all. So let's start with one of the biggest elephant in supply chain right now, blockchain, right? If you look at the blockchain market, we are only seeing the tip of the iceberg right now. We have really not seen the action. We are right here. We are just here. And the action will happen in next few years. What it means for all of us, it means that we all have to be, at least have a good understanding and maybe join the bandwagon if it works for us. Okay. Again, from both practice perspective and researchers perspective, we have to have a very good understanding of this. So let's see what and how we can do this, right? So let's start with one of the very interesting example. And Amit, this is what I was referring to earlier, uh, that in 2019, Walmart mandated their lettuce and spinach supplier to join blockchain, right? So the question was that, uh, and I'll pose this question on why, but let's first see how they did it. They asked their direct suppliers of lettuce, spinach, and other greens to join the food tracking blockchain. And that included farmers, logistic firms, business partners, everybody. Right? Now, this is not the first time Walmart has done this. In mid 2000s, they basically asked many of their suppliers that if you do not have RFID tags, you cannot supply to me. And by the way, that changed the whole world of supply chain analytics. What we see supply chain analytics right now, this was not possible if Walmart and some other companies did not take that initiative at that time, right? So let me ask you, why lettuce and spinach? Why did you think Walmart started with lettuce and spinach? What is unique about them and some other greens? Anybody in the room? You can put in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Take a guess. There should be some important business decisions why they wanted to do it, right? I know Jesse's typing. I'll wait for that. But if anybody else have any perspective on that, please jump. No idea. That's more sound like is Neville for a farmer. Yeah, yeah. As a farmer, see the value. Blockchain will have many value. The immediate value is visibility in the supply chain. That means if allowed, then different partners can see what is going on, right? And I can search for the item in the real time. That is the one quick benefit. Like if Walmart and their supply chain partner wants in the future, then you can just scan an item and you can see the whole image, video, and data of the whole supply chain if they want to, or the selective ones, right? So I'll come to that why. But first, how they did was they worked with IBM. IBM has created this food system supply chain. They work with Nestle and Dole. But one of the key reasons why they started with this one, or why they thought this is their lowest ranking fruit, is the eruption of E. coli and pinpointing the source of food contamination. Every year we get this, and then we are not able to find the source, and we have to recall everything. We are not able to fix the problem because we don't know the source of the problem. But blockchain has the potential that you, in a fraction of a second, you can see which lots had the problem, where they came from, and it can give us the root cause, which has been a headache for us for decades. Okay? And this has the potential to do that very, very nicely. It will reduce cost, it will improve safety, and it will improve efficiency in the long run. Now, it can be applied to many settings. Now they are moving more towards the dairy product and meat product. But this was in their mind the first thing to begin with because they thought the real value comes. Yes, Amit, go ahead.
So I'm just curious that how did Walmart ensure the trustworthiness of the data entered on blockchain?
Yeah, so that's the whole point. So what this IBM Food Trust and most of the blockchains are doing, they are minimizing or making the manual entry almost zero. So all this data is collected through sensors and cameras. So their temperature, humidity at the farmer's place, logistic companies, all is through sensors. And they are non-temperable sensors that IBM is installing. So that's how they are managing, which is very critical. Otherwise, the whole thing will fail. Yeah, good point. Yeah. And which is happening in many of these supply chains, by the way. Another place where they are using a lot of blockchain in supply chain is in waste and fraud in pharmacy, right? So pharmacy is another very interesting area. So nearly half of the healthcare companies are right now using, and it goes hand to hand with generative AI, which also I will spend few minutes towards the end because I know that's something that all of us has some questions around that. Now, one of the key reasons for pharmaceutical has been fraudulent drugs, counterfeit drugs, right? But And this, there's a White House committee, and I have worked with them on how to fix. Interestingly, the 80% of US drugs come from only two countries, China and India. And US government is very worried about that because that's a big part of the supply chain. The drug supply chain is critical for the any country, and 80% coming from two places and the chances of fraudulent drugs. So in this New York Times article, I talked a little bit more on the pricing side. I stayed away from more on the fraudulent side, but this also has some discussions on that. But one of the project that US government did with the pilot project with Merck and Walmart. So in this one, they ask all drug manufacturers to validate their drugs are authentic. And this has been quite successful. In fact, Walmart has been so happy with their blockchain implementations till now that they are even getting into creating their own blockchain system and getting out of IBM system. So they're actually working on that. And that will be very interesting to see when so you can see that the value part they are seeing so much they are ready to create their own system, which is very interesting. But there are a lot of questions. Amit, you were typing something I noticed. You want to say something? Go ahead. Yeah, you can speak.
Yeah. You just answered my question.
Okay.
In Walmart starting their own blockchain project.
They are in the discussion of that. See, that is this is not their forte. In fact, their Bangalore office, where they have this global IT center, that's the office they are talking right now on this thing, and it is in the works. Okay? But in the pharmacy world, the visibility decreases when you open the box. So a lot of things we need to think. Actually, there are a lot of interesting projects coming that I will just touch upon in next 5 minutes. So one is for both food and pharmaceutical, when you get the item, let's say you get a cancer drug, it says that, well, you have to keep it at minus 20 degrees. How do you know that throughout the supply chain it was at minus 20 degrees? It's not a banana that you look at it and say that, no, it does not look good to me, right? So how do we manage that? So what they have started doing now already, like big companies like Pfizer, GSK, and Novartis, they are putting these sensors which will take temperature, humidity in the real time. They will store on the blockchain. And they also have a smart contract, which is simply the piece of code, those who don't know, which will ensure that if anything deviates, it will automatically execute it, and they will basically they will trigger a response. And response could be that discard the whole thing or change the due date. Okay. Another very interesting example. So Aditya Birla Group is one of the large groups in India, and they supply a lot of clothing products to European companies. So European, let's say, shirt companies are their customers. Now, these companies came few years back and they told you cannot supply shirts to me until you put your whole thing on blockchain, because we want to see where the items are coming from and what is the environmental implications. So that was a very interesting. So what they did, they started looking at their whole supply chain from forest to garment. Now they had some blind spots there where they did not know what is going on. And that's what their customers were worried about. So they could give some guarantee, but they could not give the whole thing. So what they did, and this is not a concept, they have already done it. So they did the whole supply chain here from forest to brand, covering the blind spot. Now you can just scan the item and you can see the whole thing with the permission of course, with the access permission from the supply chain partners, and also how much carbon footprint it would create once it is discarded, right? Which is very interesting. Actually, a lot of supply chain is doing it for sustainability purpose as well, right? For green supply chain. So Coke is running a project in Africa right now, that can they trace the cans after the cans have been broken using blockchain, which is a very ambitious project, but many of these kind of projects we will start seeing going forward. And even though it is for the visibility and sustainability, one great byproduct is that we will get the kind of data that we have never got, that will feed into all generative and agentic AI, and that will change the face of everything. Diamond industry. So most of the top diamond companies have already moved to blockchain, starting from mine till the end. Any alteration in diamond, that will go there. Again, why diamond industry? Why diamond industry was one of the early ones to adopt it? What is unique about diamond industry? And not only diamond companies, but even the GIF certification agency, they have hopped into this blockchain. Any guess why?
Maybe a lot of fake diamonds in the market.
Yeah, so ability to steal a diamond, sell somewhere else, the authenticity and the lab grown diamond have become so good that it's hard to differentiate. So they want to make sure that whoever is buying the diamond, they are sure about it. Also, there's a concept of blood diamond, where what kind of ethical practices they are using. So here you can take care of that as well. And that's why all luxury brands like Louis Vuitton and Burberry, they have all moved to blockchain for all the fake items, right? So you will see the low-hanging supply chains going first, but almost all of the supply chain will join this. And it is widely used now in manufacturing. You can see the list of some of the companies who are heavily using blockchain. Toyota is putting a lot of their ads on blockchain also now, but we will see more and more joining in the game. So clearly, it is very important for us to understand what does it mean for supply chain, how it will change the world of analytics, and so on. Okay. Now I'm going to end the discussion with three things. Why the whole discussion on generative AI, agentic AI is very important, how it connects with Industry 5.0, and some of the recent thing that is going on. And then I can stay longer if needed for more questions, but since we are reaching towards the end of time. Now, one of the things that we all hear about generative AI, but we have to understand how it is fundamentally different than traditional AI, right? So that is a very important question, that if you have to pick something in terms of the user's perspective, not algorithm perspective, what could generative AI do that we could not do before generative AI came? Think of one thing that we could not do at all or could not do nicely. Yes, Amit, go ahead.
Create new content based on existing content.
Create new content, right? And I think create image based on text, right? Those kind of things. So creating content, what does it mean for supply chains, right? So, in the hyper cycle, within a few months, it went into top of the Gartner cycle, right? Now they had a separate generative AI cycle as well, just recently. So it can generate content, as you correctly told. Now, by 2025, it is now producing 10% of all data. Drug discovery, right? Till now, AI was helping us in telling which of the drug we should spend our money on. But now it will tell you where to spend rather than you asking them where to spend. They will come up with the new drug discovery. They will come up with the new features to add rather than you asking which of these features to add, right? So that's a good thing in terms of the supply chain. And I have series of videos that you can go and find on my pages and podcast. But it is going big part into supply chain, and it fits very well with the blockchain I discussed earlier, because blockchain will generate data which will help us with developing these models in supply chain. And then these models will help us in making our systems more secure, right? So generative AI can help enterprises in like finding potential suppliers, sourcing productivity. Like it can tell you the suppliers that you did not think about earlier. It can tell you the environmental compact that you did not think about earlier, right? And so on. Now, how is agentic AI different from generative AI? Can anybody say in a sentence? What is new in agentic AI? Before I even ask that question, let me set the stage. So a few months back, Forbes came with this article that in next 3 years, 1/3 of the companies are going to use agentic AI. And how many are using right now? Less than 1%. Right? So what happened here? There's another article which talked about how agentic AI will transform the financial services. Okay. So, and very recently, just few weeks back, you can find the article. I was talking to both Time Magazine and the Bloomberg Law on how agentic AI is changing the way how we think about data, right? So let me ask you, anybody in the room, how is agentic AI different from generative AI or any other AI, and why is it important for supply chain analytics? In one sentence, if you can say. And I'll be happy to take anything. So autonomous executions, yeah. And JC, I see you are also typing. So one of the challenges, and until JC's thing come, let me continue. So one of the things that agentic AI is doing is that they have many different generative AIs, which are basically collecting the data. JC, continue with your comment. And in generative AI, we have to keep doing additional human prompting. Agentic AI can work with many generative AI agents, which are trained from different perspectives, and it can give you a task completion. This is a gold mine for supply chains. They can take data from different perspectives. And one thing that blockchain is able to do that we could not do earlier is that, so it's a problem solving focus. So till now, without blockchain, we have data sitting with different suppliers. Even if they share data with each other, they will be limited. But in agentic AI, without even looking at each other's data, we can run analytics on the back end, which combines data from different suppliers without anybody looking at those data. That is possible now. And they are all authentic data, as we discussed earlier. So agentic AI will be of paramount importance because of that. So it can generate new content and it can perform tasks. So there are a lot of things we can do. And to stay on time, I'm going to end with one last thing in this discussion, and I'll be happy to stay for more questions. This McKinsey report is talking about how AI-driven supply chain is transformed different part of the journey. You can find the article and talk more. But what I feel is that how all this analytics will combine with the world of Industry 5.0. So Industry 4.0 did cyber physical systems. And this is the company that we started with some of our students actually took the lead. I work in their advisory board. And we have done a lot of implementation of AI in manufacturing. You can find some examples on the web pages if you go to insights.com with two Z's. And this is one we did where this AI system, without any human intervention, it can check whether these are called Bowsers, where the cements are put, the whole inspection without human intervention. Here, every part is inspected in real time. If any part is defective, you stop the machine. So that changes again the face of supply chain. But what I feel where the world is going is Industry 5.0, which means mass customization. What does that mean? Which means that everybody get what they want. You get a shoe you want, you get a car you want, you get a laptop you want, right? Is it possible in the supply chain? So now Nike has started doing part of that. You can go and say, I want this kind of shoes and so on, right? But I'll give you two examples which we have recently done. So we worked on a project on breast cancer. This is again a published work, so you can find it. Here we created personalized treatment plan for each breast cancer patient. Okay, we took their data and we created the predictive plan. Now another project that we are working right now with a team from MIT, Georgia Perakis, who is the interim dean of Sloan School at MIT right now, her team, and Professor Angela Belcher, this is another team. So these two teams and my center, we are working on with many of our students on this prescriptive treatment for ovarian cancer. So again, this is part of mass customization. We took genetic data, we took demographic data, and we took different genome data, and we are able to do the mass customization. And in the similar line, we have done a series with Wall Street Journal. So Wall Street Journal collaborated with us in November of 23, and we worked with Amazon, Walmart, and Target CEO on how you can provide the shipping services which are designed for customers and where the future is changing. So there are 4 videos that we had created. You can find that. I'll not go into detail, but here I touch a lot into analytics aspect of it. And this we did with NBC. In this series, we have talked about how sustainability in the supply chain is facing a role. So these are some of the follow-up things you can look at. And interestingly, I wrote a couple of books from supply chain perspective, but in very different domain. So I wrote how supply chain of advertising works, how supply chain of social media analytics works. So, and why I'm putting it, because, supply chain, sometimes we get stuck with nuts and bolts, right? We have done some in healthcare operations as well. So we have to think of the broader view. I have put links here. So those who need, you can always find me, type my name and you will get all the links. My email is public. I'll happy to hear more from you. So with that, thank you very much. Let me stop here. As I told, I'll stay for more questions. Srikar, I hope I was on time. I took few minutes extra.
No, that was excellent, and everybody thoroughly enjoyed it. So thanks a lot, Subodh, for making time to give this excellent presentation. So we can take a few more minutes for any other questions
or comments.
Yeah.
Yes, Amit, go ahead.
Yes, as you mentioned about various technologies, blockchain, generative AI, agentic AI, and in the last slide you mentioned that this digital transformation can help with mass customization. So how do these technologies in any way help reduce costs associated with the mass customization?
So what all of this technology is touching on 3 key aspects, or I will say 4 key aspects of supply chain. One is the responsiveness. What we say responsiveness is that what we are able to provide to our customer, or the best fit item to our customers, right? That is obvious because all this technology help us in understanding our customer better. Second is the efficiency aspect, which is the cost aspect. Now, whenever we are able to see the data more closely and we give customers what they want, then the wastage in the supply chain reduces. And whenever the wastage reduces with the good supply chain contracting mechanism, everybody benefit, including the customers, right? So that's where the cost part comes. Third piece comes is the sustainability. So, as we talked about, some of the blockchain projects are doing on sustainability. Fourth is the piece of resilience. Now, if we are able to, like what Steve Jobs told us, is that we give customers what they don't know they want, right? So if we are able to use this technology to do that, I think we can solve all of these 4 problems. And that's where it is attacking, Amit, right now, which I think from the research perspective, very interesting research questions are emerging now. And for practice, it's a gold mine at this stage.
Thank you for a very insightful answer. So just one more question, if it's okay with you.
Yeah,
go ahead. So we see 2 use cases of blockchain. One was trade lanes, which was between IBM, Maersk, and their supply chain, which got shut down. And we see the case of Walmart Canada, which could implement blockchain on full scale with their logistic providers. So any idea what was the difference, why that got shut down, and why did this work out?
So see, the reason why some of these projects are failed right now is not because they are bad. What is happening right now is that because of both the technology and adoption, you will not get the full-fledged benefit that the blockchain entails. A simple reason could be that, even if you put everything on blockchain, but different supply chain partners say, no, we don't want to share any of our data because that's a different strategic decision, then your value is very limited. Second, what problem are we solving here, right? Now, if that problem cannot be solved, you can't do much with the blockchain. So we will see many failures. So when I talk to the companies who come and say, we want to implement blockchain, my first question is why? And if they say that because everybody else is doing, then that's the company I don't want to work with, right? And I'll say, go back and evaluate. So I think the failures are coming because of the timing as well as the willingness and they are not really solving some pain points. So that's why Walmart has become very careful now that which one they begin with. But over in 5 to 10 years time, their world will change because more and more things will start becoming low hanging. So it's not unusual to see that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amit. And thank you. I know JC had to leave, but thank you. I hope Srikar, this is what you're looking for. Yeah, no.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Subodh. It was great to have you. And,
thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. And so we will end it here and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Srikar, and the rest of the team, Mary. Yeah, thank you.